What's up, guys? The FR Heart 2 audio show where faith and what you do collide. And today with me, I have a special guest, student pastor of First Baptist Snellville, former college athlete, Gideon Ajagbe. Gideon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I've been good.
What you been up to lately? I know you just moved down here from where?
I moved from Longview, Texas, specifically Gilmer, Texas. Is a neighborhood outside of Longview, which is East Texas. I am married to Ashley Ajagbe, who has been my wife of almost 5 years, and I have two daughters. My oldest daughter is Ava. She's 2 years old, and I have a newborn named Mia.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let you kind of talk about your life growing up. I'll jump in at certain points, and I kind of just want to see how faith and what you do in your life has really collided and given you purpose on this life. So if you can kind of just tell me how you grew up, where you grew up, your trials, your testimony, because I've heard your testimony, but I want a lot of people to kind of hear it. So
For sure. I am from Miami, Florida, born and raised. 18 years, grew up there. I grew up in a Nigerian household, two Nigerian parents, Augustine Ajagbe and Adetutu Ajagbe. And I have 5 siblings.
Okay.
3 brothers, 2 sisters.
And last time I checked, I remember you telling me that your youngest sister is a pretty good track and field athlete.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
She's a Miami Hurricane, University of Miami. She's in her sophomore year, about to go into her junior year. She placed 5th in nationals in the disc, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is dope,
Pretty
for
dope,
sure.
man, for real. Grew up in a Christian home. I remember my dad sharing the gospel with us from a very young age, reading the Bible to us all the time, but also going to church every Sunday. But that didn't really capture my heart growing up.
Okay.
I didn't really have a personal relationship with Jesus, but I knew who Jesus was. I could spit Bible verses out to you. I looked the part, went to church with a suit and tie, shook people's hand, looked them in the eye. I was a respectful person, but Jesus wasn't the center of my life.
So it's funny you say that. You're saying that you had everything around you saying you're a Christian, but you know deep down inside you weren't. Why do you think that happens in today's day and age? Because I have an answer, but I kind of want to hear what you have to say too.
I think the reason why is because I think personally is the world where we're taught when we go to church that you have a personal relationship with God just because you go to church and because your family holds this belief. But I believe personally for me, the reason why I didn't own it is because nothing in my life outside of Sunday said that I was a Christian. Everything else in my life was centered around football. It was centered around relationships. I think people believe that because maybe our churches are telling us that, or maybe our families say because I own this faith or my parents own this faith that I immediately have this faith myself. But yeah, nothing in my life centered around who Jesus was, so I know I wasn't a Christian then.
Okay. So as you were going through high school, kind of give me an idea of what was going on in your life and how college football and all that stuff changed you. Because I know the story, but again, it's a great testimony that I think a lot of people should want to hear.
Absolutely. So going into my 9th grade year, I had a huge camp experience with football where my coach Mosey Blake took me to Sunshine Sports Camp, which was or National Underclassmen Camp, and Sunshine Sports was there reporting it, and I had a really good camp experience. I ran a 4.6 in the 40. I was 180 pounds, 6'3".
Let's say that big boy moving.
had a great experience.
Yeah.
And the dude from Sunshine Sports was there. He said, "Mark my words, in a week or two, you're gonna get a call from some really big colleges." And I had a call from University of Central Florida and University of Florida saying that they're interested in me. And from that point on, I knew that I hadn't had the opportunity to possibly go play college football. So I started working harder. So everything around my life was centered around becoming the best football player, working out 3 or 4 times a day in the summer, even working out during the season on my own time, and then on the off season running track, wrestling, and even playing basketball at some point.
And it's funny you say that because I think that sometimes whenever it comes to people finding their purpose or finding a talent, it's like we believe it in our hearts, but sometimes we have to get outsiders or an outside source to kind of tell us, hey, like, you're good at this. Like, you were saying how you were working out, but when some guy was like, hey, get ready for a call in a couple of weeks, you're like, okay, now it's time to push the pedal to the metal and go even farther with it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, his words, Mosey Blake's words, Coach Johnson's words, Wilbert Johnson. He was my wrestling coach and also my running backs coach. Tommy Mancuso was another running back coach I had. Those people were instrumental in me knowing that I was actually good at football and I had a chance to play at the next level. And they didn't just boost my head up, but they made sure they held me accountable to being a good leader, being a servant to others. So they were always on me about, man, if you're going to have this talent, you got to put the work in. And they kept me to that. And then I became a self-starter. Like, I just did extra stuff.
Yeah.
Me and my friend Roger Corey always put the work in. And I had other friends as well that came alongside us, like Joseph. And like, they just made sure that we're working hard and getting right. But yeah, football was the center of my life, but I also had other things in my life that I was running after. I was always running after different relationships.
Yeah,
it kind of formed and shaped who I was. I think the thing that I really wanted out of relationships was like this acceptance. Like, I just always wanted to feel like, man, I was good enough, and the people thought I was good enough. And
I feel you.
So trying to play football, trying to be good at that, and then acceptance from relationships with females was something that I sought after. And that kind of was my direction. I also got into smoking marijuana and all that stuff. That's something that I did because I felt like it was cool, and people do that. And then that was kind of my direction in high school, and it led all the way up to college. When I got my scholarship offer from the University of Florida, I made a decision that I wouldn't smoke weed anymore, and I still did. I still wanted to have relationships with girls and stuff like that, and I still was working hard. But I knew marijuana would keep me, or weed would keep me from getting to where I need to go and staying where I wanted to go. So I stopped doing that, but I did everything else. I was still trying to glorify myself and make myself be known. And then when I got to college, I just continued that whole scene. I was in the club probably 3 nights a week when I first got there in the summer, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But I was still working hard in football, and I had a lot of promise. Possibly gonna play a lot of special teams and not be a starter, but affect the game. But I had a pretty serious shoulder injury going into my freshman camp that didn't only take me out of my first year, but was life threatening. So bad that they told me that I probably would have died if I didn't go to the hospital because of it, or I wouldn't be able to lose my arm again. And it was devastating for me because, like I said, football was the center of my life. Football was everything to me. It was my God. It was a thing that they gave me purpose and allowed me to keep getting up every morning with a lot of motivation. So when that was taken from me, I thought my life was over. And I thought that, man, I was worthless. And wow. I started having suicidal thoughts, and I had tons of really high, powerful medicines like oxycodone and oxycontin and another one, man. I had 3 medicines that I could take to kind of numb the pain, and I would take them in excess. And at the time, that's when my now wife was my girlfriend, Ashley. She saw that I was taking more pills than I needed to, and she told my roommate, Tyler Murphy, she said, hey, make sure you give him what he needs. Don't let him take those pills on his own because he'll take more than he needs. So Ashley was very pivotal in my staying alive because I was trying to kill myself.
And it's fun. It's not funny you say that, but I literally was reading a quote the other day, and it says, power exposes who you are to others, but adversity exposes your attitude towards God. So how do you feel like during this time, how do you feel like your attitude towards God was?
My attitude towards God was one of indifference. Because I grew up in the church, I knew who Jesus was, but I didn't think he affected my life.
Okay.
And there was one point in my life, just because of how I was raised, that it didn't seem like Christianity was genuine. to the people I went to church with, and sometimes even in my own family. So I was like, I want nothing to do with this Jesus. If this is what Jesus is, then I'm just going to figure it out my own way. So I didn't have, I was indifferent to God, and sometimes didn't even care about him, didn't have a personal relationship with him. So it was just crazy, because I was trying to kill myself. And but around that same time, I met a dude named Kevin Sides who, after my surgeries, had two surgeries after I found out what happened to my shoulder. And I met Kevin Sides, and he shared the gospel with me and invited me to Bible studies called at Athletes in Action. We called them Big Monday. And then there was another small group Bible study, and I started going to those even though I wasn't a Christian, even though I still thought I was worthless, even though I wanted to kill myself. I just started going, and I felt a sense of community that was different than what I grew up in. It was genuine. It was real. There was people that I saw at the club with me be there. So I was like, man, I'm accepted, man. I can be who I am here. And it was truly a genuine place to be and actually learn about Jesus. And I started going there for a month, and then one Wednesday night, 5 days before my birthday, I was there with six other people. Five were my teammates, and one of them was a basketball player. And I basically we're just sitting around the circle, and we're having discussion about Jesus and integrity. And Kevin was asking questions about, man, what that looked like in a man's life. And then he kind of shifts the conversation to, hey, there's some people in the room that say they love Jesus, but their lives don't look like it. There's some people that say that some people say that Jesus is everything in their life, but they're sleeping with their girlfriend. And at that time, and I was doing that. I was living a double life. I was living with my now wife, but my girlfriend then, and then we were sleeping together. We were not walking with Jesus. We were doing things wrong. So it convicted me. It cut me to the heart. And I felt like I needed to have a conversation with him. So I pulled him to the side after the meeting. And I was like, hey, bro, like, I feel like you were talking about me. And he was like, nah, I was talking about all these other dudes, but since you brought it up, let's talk about it. Nice. So I was like, man, I got myself in trouble. Good job, Gid. But that conversation led to him taking me home after everybody else left. And I just felt compelled in the car to share with him. I was like, man, I can just be real with this dude, man. I can share my whole life. And I shared my life with him, and I just shared for like 5 or 7 minutes. And he didn't say a single word. He just listened to me. And then we got in front of my dorm, and he listened to me a little bit longer. And then he pulled out his Bible, and he opened his Bible to James 1. And the verses 19 through 25, he basically reads, I'm not going to say everything. He says, don't be a hearer of the word, but be a doer of the word, because the doers of the word will be blessed. And for the first time in my life, I realized for 18 years of my life, I've always been a hearer of the word. And the reason why I've always been a hearer of the word and not a doer is because I didn't have a personal relationship with Jesus. There was nothing in me that wanted to do what Jesus told me to do because I didn't know him.
Right.
I knew about him.
Right.
I can tell you all every fact about Jesus, but I didn't know him personally. And I didn't even pray a prayer. I didn't even pray a prayer. It was just like a moment where my eyes were closed. I was in darkness. I was running after girls and fame. And then for all of a sudden, I realized that my purpose in life was to follow Jesus, was to live the way that he lived, and that I finally believed the message that I was always taught my whole life, that my dad.
So I've been reading The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren, and he says in there, in the first chapter, he says, just because you become successful at something doesn't necessarily mean it's your purpose. And so you going through high school, you're getting the offers, because how many offers did you have?
I had over 60 offers.
Right. So you might have said, hey, I'm living God's purpose, but it was like that moment really took you to a point where you really understood, like, hey, I haven't been living right. Hey, I haven't been doing this right. But now I really am starting to understand that I need to be living for God for my best ability for his glory. So that's good for sure.
Mm-hmm. For sure, man. And, man, God really did work because, man, my eyes were opened. I realized that I needed to start following Jesus, and I just started, like, my desires changed. Like, I tell people that I left I entered the car spiritually dead, lost, broken, and I left the car spiritually alive with my purpose set, knowing who I was and why I was on the earth for,
right,
and what God had called me to. And it went on in a weird way either. It was just like, no, like, I understand that my purpose in life was way more than just my sport or about how many girls I mess with and how many girls that I've been with, or whatever the case is.
And it goes back to Jeremiah 29:11, because we hear that God says that he has plans for us to prosper. And I remember my cousin, I mention it all the time. He said that his pastor said, is an orange tree a failure if it can't grow lemons? And the first thing everybody would say, no, because that's not what it's designed to do. And so sometimes, and I played college football too, I understand it. Sometimes we go, okay, maybe if I trained a little bit harder, I can get my dreams. Maybe if I worked out a little bit more, I can get my dreams. Maybe if I ate a little bit better, I'll get my dreams. But sometimes there comes a point in your life where you kind of got to realize, like, God's trying to tell you, like, hey, you're not failing at this. This just isn't what I designed you for. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the big things that I understood coming out of college, and we've talked before that you understood, that it's like sometimes failing isn't really failure. It's just that you're not designed to do that. It's like Thomas Edison said, he didn't fail 3,000 times trying to make the light bulb, or whatever number of times it is. He just figured out that many times that's not how you make a light bulb.
That's true.
So it's one of those things where it's like understanding your purpose in those situations.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because fast forward, became a follower of Jesus. Jesus opened my eyes. My life was completely different. I even though I wasn't perfect, and I'm still not perfect now. If you know me, anybody knows me closely, I still make mistakes. I'm a sinner, but God has saved me. I'm saved by His grace, and I'm still growing. I'm on a journey, and for 4.5 years, I was discipled by the same guy that led me to Jesus, Kevin Sides, and he is pivotal for who I am today. And
Kevin, we hope that you watch this.
Hope you watch this, bro.
So you can get a little bit of props here.
Yeah, you the man. But yeah, like, Kevin discipled me for 4.5 years in college, and it all came to a head where you're talking about purpose and finding out where your purpose is. Like, I finally figured out what God made me to do, going into my 5th year at the University of Florida, and I went to a summer retreat, which was sponsored by Athletes in Action, and I was asked to MC the event. And if anybody knows me, I'm an introvert by nature. Like, I'm more to myself. I don't like to be on the spotlight. I like to be in the background. I like to see other people succeed. I like to see other people happy. That's how I am naturally. So when he asked me to be the MC, I welled up a lot of anxiety in me. And it's funny because at first I was like, man, I don't know why I'm doing this. I was freaking out. But God used that weekend to really show me that my purpose was to be in full-time ministry. And this is what I mean. Most people that go into full-time ministry because they're gifted speakers, and they know how to handle the word of truth well, and they can do all these things really well. But for me personally, I felt like God was telling me that your call to ministry is out of your weakness, because because you feel like you're inadequate is the very thing that you need to be to fulfill the purposes that I've called you to. That you would depend on me every single step of the way in your communication, in your leadership to people, and everything that you do needs to be connected to me, and not in your own strength. But if you do anything good in your communication and how you lead people to Jesus, it's because I did it, and you will know that I did it.
And it's funny. Another book that I just got done reading is Business for the Glory of God by Wayne Grudem, and he has a chapter in there talking about work and stewardship, and he says that 1 Peter 4:10 talks about that we have to be good stewards of what the Lord gives us. And it's one of those things where it's like we have to understand it's not our money, it's not our time, it's not our body, it's His. So at the end of the day, you have to remember, like, this is not your own doing. Again, this is you using the things that God has given you to do everything to build His kingdom. So that's a great point that you had right there.
Yeah, man, for sure. So yeah, God changed my heart, changed my mind there. I knew I was called to ministry from that moment, even though it was completely different than how I've ever heard it be done before. And I just shifted my gears. I was trying to become an athletic director at that point. I was actually starting my master's degree, and I did start my master's degree in sports management, but ended up not finishing in that degree program and getting married to my wife, Ashley, on December 13th, 2014. And then we moved to Charleston, South Carolina shortly after, where I continued to work out for the NFL and work a job at Haverty's Furniture Store, where I worked there for a year. And then through working that job and through working out, God made it very clear that the NFL was not the move for your boy, and tried out with the Buccaneers and did not make the team. Clearly, it was 53 of us, and one dude signed, and I think his name was Duran.
And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand, that like, because I went through the process too. I didn't get a chance to go to rookie minicamp like you did, but people don't understand. Like, people say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to rookie minicamp," and if you play football, you understand like there's 50, 60, 70 guys out there, and they're only going to sign 3 of them. But a lot of people see, ooh, rookie minicamp, this guy's getting paid a whole lot of money, and they don't know that like all you leave when you go out the door is with like the team shorts, team T-shirt, team hat.
That's literally all I got.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
If you come to my house right now, I got Under Armour shirt, I got Buccaneers pants, I got a visor, and they didn't even give me the jersey.
Right.
But yeah, man, that's all you leave with, and you don't get paid until you play a game.
Right.
Unless you have a signing bonus that they sign you with.
Right, and you only get that if you're drafted. I think that's the main part that a lot of people don't understand. They just hear, "Oh, this guy's working out for the NFL," and it's like people don't understand. Like, you really only get paid if you play in the games, and you really only get paid like consistently if you've shown you've been able to play. Like, I have a lot of friends who they'll go in and out of the league, and it's like people don't understand, like, you're not making like a whole lot of money doing that. So, but anyway, I want to hear more of your testimony. So, found out that NFL wasn't for you, working at Haverty's. So then what happens after that?
After I came home, I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
Cried like a baby, and I had to face the hard reality that if I could continue to try to go to different team and team hop while my wife was still at school, in nursing school, or make the hard decision and say, listen, you have a job. I've called you first to love your wife, to serve her, to sacrifice for her. And I had to face the music and say, listen, this ain't the move no more. God has made it clear. One person got signed out of 53 that got invited. It's most likely going to be like that everywhere I go.
And so why do you think, for like guys who are training for the league, for the NBA, for the MLB, why do you think it's hard for them, us included, to just give it up? I think personally it is because what happens is, like, people don't understand that starting rookie salary in the NFL is $460,000. Like, if in the real world, if you make $200,000, like, that's an amazing job. Mm-hmm. And I think what happens is we see the articles, we see people talking about us, we meet the scouts, and so all of a sudden it's like, this is what I want my life to be. Like, I'm going to have this house, I'm going to have this car, like, I'm going to have this woman that I care about, I'm going to have these kids, like, and then when it's done, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to do this if I want to. And then all of a sudden it's like, all of that stuff almost gets erased because it's like part A, like the first step didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the hardest thing. What do you think about that?
I think it goes back to what happened to me when I was 18. Because if I didn't become a Christian at 18 and that happened to me, I probably would have ended it all because all my eggs were in that basket.
Yeah.
So let's say nothing that happened, the spiritual conversion that happened to me at 18 did not happen. I would have held on to that dream and kept on going.
Right. And
something would have imploded. I would have imploded, or my marriage would have imploded. Something would have imploded because that would have still been number one.
Right.
So I think the thing that made it different for me was that I had a new identity in Christ. Like, Jesus became all. And because he came all, it wasn't easy because I asked my wife. I cried for a week. I came home from work, took my tie off. We had a chair in our room, in our bedroom, and I knelt down there and I sobbed. I put my music on and I sobbed for an hour every day when I got home. And then I took it off, took my headphones off, and I ate dinner, and I just was moping around for a whole week. And I grieved it. I buried it, and I said, listen, if this is going to die, it's going to die hard. And I let it die. And then after that week, I had a new perspective because I worked through the emotions of saying, like, man, this was my baby. Like, football was my baby. It was my first love. I gave my heart to it. Anybody that knows who I was in high school, football was number one. I literally worked out 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Four times a day sometimes, and 4 to 5 days a week in the off season to prepare for the season. So, like, it was everything to me. It was what got me to college. It's what allowed me to graduate. because I didn't have the best grades, and so it was everything to me. And for me to let it go like that was hard, but it birthed something better.
Right.
It birthed something better. So yeah, it birthed something better in me. After that week of crying and knowing that football was over and I gave it up, a month later, I met two gentlemen it was a regular day for me. I was just going to an outreach event after work at a park in Charleston that was in a neighborhood. And there was a church named New Beginnings Baptist Church that was there helping our church, Awaken Church in Charleston,
Okay.
with an outreach event. And it was New Beginnings missioncation trip. They called it missioncation. It was their mission trip, and they were serving us. And I was there just hanging out with kids that were in our student ministry. I was a volunteer in Awaken Youth, and I was just regular Wednesday.
Yeah.
I just do this every Wednesday, and I was just hanging out. And I was playing football with some kids from Charleston and also from Texas. Had no idea. I thought everybody was from Charleston. Didn't even know that this church from Texas was even there.
Yeah, I got you.
So I'm just hanging out, having a good time. And almost every kid on my team was from Texas. Had no idea, playing with them. And after the game, some guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, thank you so much for letting our students and our kids feel very comfortable and play football with you." And I was like, "Hey, man, no problem." He's like, "Man, let me know a little bit more about you." So shared who I was, shared my story with him, not knowing that he was the lead pastor of the church.
Oh, wow.
That I was talking to. And
Yeah.
he was like, "Hey, man, it was nice talking to you." And then I walked off and hung out with a group of kids by the tennis courts. And we're sitting on a picnic bench. It was like 10 of us were just talking. And then another pastor named John came up, and he pulled me out, and he was like, "Listen, there's man, how about student ministry?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What about student ministry?" I'm like, he's like, "Man, come here, let's talk about it." So he pulled me out of the conversation with a group of kids, and he said, "Man, we have a student pastor position that we're trying to fill at our church, and we think you'll be perfect for it. We think you're the guy. We think that you would be the perfect fit for this new campus birth that we're beginning, and we think you'll be the student guy, the best student guy for it." So I was shocked because I was like, "This is a God moment." I know I'm called to ministry. A year earlier, God called me to ministry.
Right.
Tried out for NFL.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Right.
Working this job. And then I'm not looking for it. This is a routine day for me. This is what I do. Every Wednesday,
exactly.
Wednesday, I serve. And then these two guys out of nowhere are literally offering me a position.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a big deal. And I went home, and my wife was studying for her nursing exam, and she was like, I told her, "Man, these two guys came up to me and they offered me a student pastor position. What do you think?" And she was like, "If God is leading us, let's do it."
Yeah.
And that's all I needed to hear. When she said that, I was like, "We're gonna move."
Right. So then talk about that for me, because a lot of times, do you think if Ashley would have said no, do you think it would have? What factor do you think that would have played in your decision?
I would have gone.
Okay.
There's no way I would have gone, because it was our first year marriage, and I trust her. I trust the Spirit of God in her enough where I would hear what she says, and she'd be like, "Listen, if I don't think that's the right fit for us, we need to tread slowly." I would have either treaded slowly, or if she said no, I would have said, "I really appreciate it, even though I'm honored. I'm not gonna move forward with you guys." I would have did that.
Okay.
And I think she knew that.
Yeah.
I think that's why she said yes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. And then so you start in ministry as the student pastor of New Beginnings. Did you face any challenges? Did you face any? Because I know that's hard. That's hard for anybody, because we know firsthand that whenever you get into ministry, first off, the job description may look like this, and then you see the paper kind of in the cartoon kind of flow, and it becomes a little bit longer. But what were the trials and stuff that you kind of face, whether it be organizationally or like personally?
Everything, all of the above. Because if anybody knows me, I'm not the most organized person in the world.
Right.
Again, as I said, I wasn't called to ministry in my strength. I was called to ministry in my weakness. So literally, I'm on ground zero.
Right.
All I had was my testimony.
Yeah.
I had no theological training. I had no communication skills as far as large group public speaking skills.
Right. No, I got you.
I read the Bible enough to that point where I knew I was very familiar with the whole Bible, but I didn't know all the terminologies and and I still don't know everything. But like, I didn't know everything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know
I got
anything.
you for
I was
sure,
literally
for sure.
green.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
green.
Yeah.
And I walked into that position at a deficit.
Okay.
They took a risk taking me.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate New Beginnings. I love you guys, Pastor Todd, Pastor Connor, all the staff. Thank you for what y'all did for me and allowed me to work there for 3 years. But yeah, man, like I had tons of challenges. I remember my first, I'm gonna be very honest, my first Wednesday night there, I was asked to do the announcements and I forgot them. And I freaked out and I was like, okay, roll the video. And that was my experience. I remember my first sermon. I had 6 pages of notes, about 30 minutes of talking time.
Yeah.
I finished my sermon in 10 minutes because I literally read word for word.
Yeah, and
notes.
and people don't always understand. Like, I remember the first time, because I speak to kids over at South Gwinnett. I remember the first time I went over there, like I had all this stuff planned out. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to take about 10, 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden I start going through and I'm flying and I look down at my watch. I'm like, okay, 6 minutes. Good talk. And it's like one of those things where it's like when you get antsy, you can't really just flow and be relaxed. Mm-hmm. But I know personally, I've seen you speak before, that you definitely have gotten over that point in your career. So.
Yeah. I appreciate that. But yeah, that was the challenges, leading other adults. I'm 23 years old when I got there, 24 years old. I'm brand new to ministry. I'm leading a group of kids that don't really know who I am. I'm socially awkward and I'm introverted. So every new space I walked into, everybody knew I was struggling.
Right.
There was one leader who I love, Micah. I love you. I'm not throwing shade on you. I want people to know who you are, for a good thing. He didn't believe in me. He said, "Man, this dude ain't gonna make it." and somebody called him out and said, "Man, how about you help him?
Oh wow!
If you think he's not gonna make it, how about you help him?" And he came up to me. He became one of my best friends.
That's dope.
And one of the truth tellers on my team that helped me develop. And so yeah, I had many challenges and. Many challenges, leading people, leading teams, leading adults, having hard conversations. Again, I'm scared of my own shadow. So
yeah, I was about to say,
having a hard conversation with somebody that you don't know and they barely trust you is really difficult. And these are all things that help me grow. I believe this, and you know this because you know this dude. I'm not trying to throw. Crawford Loritz had a book called Leadership as an Identity, and he says that leadership, as leaders in the church or leaders in Christian ministry or leaders, period, our leadership should help us grow in our walk with Jesus. It's directly connected. There's a gap between who God has called you to be and who you are now. And I viewed every step of the way as growth spiritually for me. So every time I messed up, I used it as, okay, I'm not done. I'm not down and out. It's just a lesson learned. I just got to learn from this. And it made me work harder. I started working on my communication skills. I would go home and watch 20 videos on how to communicate, and I just started practicing in the mirror, and I got better. And I started reading books on leadership, on how to lead my home better, and how to lead a team better. And I started researching all kind of leadership models and all that stuff, and I just started implementing those things because I didn't have anything. Right. So my deficit actually made me a better student of being a better leader, pastor, friend, husband. I was also challenges at home because I wanted to be so good in ministry that there was times where it was hard on my marriage with Ashley, and we had a lot of hard conversations about me managing my home, so much that I had to read a book called 4 Pillars of a Man's Heart and I had to learn how to become a warrior leader. Right. And that book was centered around helping men be balanced and have 4 pillars that hold them up, that help them hold up their own lives and hold up their families. So there was tons of things that leadership as a pastor has revealed in me, and I believe my call to ministry is the very reason why I'm a better Christian. Okay. Because it revealed a lot of weaknesses in me. It revealed a lot of brokenness in me, and God used all of those things to make me more and more like Him.
And it's funny that it's. And when I say it's funny, I'm basically saying it's ironic because I know that when I first got on staff here, that I read my Bible every day. I know the Word of God. I have a strong faith in Jesus Christ. But it's like when you have, like you said, like there are things that are broken in people's lives. And I know personally for me, when I got on staff here, one of the biggest things that I got not nervous about was I was like, what if somebody walking down the street calls me out and says, well, do you know what this says in the Bible? Or do you know what that says in the Bible? And I say no. As somebody on staff, it almost makes you look like you're not suitable to be on staff, or it doesn't make you look like you're as committed. So like you said, like when I got on staff here, the first thing I did is I was like, okay, I got to start reading more. I got to start really dissecting the word of God, because at the end of the day, if God has given you an opportunity to work in a church, you have to understand like that's an important position. And so with that being said, I really understood that you've got to know things that other people don't know, because your job is to really get the message out to the believers and non-believers.
Yes, absolutely. I will say this, and people may think I'm weird, but I know this is why God's called me to it, because I believe my call to ministry is directly hand in hand with my development as a person, as a Christian, as a husband, as a father. Because of my call to ministry and me being in leadership, I have to live out the things that I preach to people.
Right.
I have to live it out first.
Yeah.
So it challenges me to look at the truths of the Bible and say, okay, Gideon, if you're not walking this out, then you need to start today. And it's made me better. You can ask my wife. I'm not a perfect dude, but over the last 10 years that I've known her, 9.5, 10 years, I am a better person because of my walk with Jesus. I'm a better friend. I'm a better everything. And it's because I've had to face my shadow. I've had to confess that I'm not there yet, that there's things in my life, even to this day, that I need to let go of, and I need to hold on to what Christ has called me to do. So,
and it's like that saying we hear, practice what you preach. My grandpa always said you should flip it and you should preach what you practice. And you're saying, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not just an angel child. Like, there's a lot of things going on in my life, but at the same time, I'm still trying to get better. And so now you're able to, and I've seen you do it, now you're able to preach to high school and middle school kids and say, hey, like, stuff's not always going to go right in your life. Like, you're going to have your downfalls, but at the end of the day, it's not about falling. It's about getting up and overcoming those trials.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so then 3 years later, you get a call from somebody, and kind of tell me how that goes.
So last summer, 2018 summer, I got a call from a dude named Trent Peacock.
Shout out to Trent.
He called me, and he's like, hey, we're looking for a student pastor here at First Baptist Snellville in Snellville, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta. And to be honest with you, we went through the process. We talked for about a day or two, and I was like, bruh, nah, man. Nah, I'm not doing this. And so, yeah, I said no to him, but he was a great dude, and I felt like it was a great opportunity, but I just didn't feel like it was for me or my family in the moment. But a little bit later on after that, my wife and I continued to talk, and, we just got pregnant, and my wife started talking about, man, our family being closer to our family, specifically being closer to our family as a whole, our extended family, and that our daughters would know their grandparents and their aunts and their uncles, and they would have deep relationships with them. And as we started exploring that, our hearts started to shift. And it was really hard for me because I love Gilmer. Everybody that's listening here, everybody that will listen to this, man, Gilmer was a instrumental part of my walk with Jesus. I'm a better everything because of Gilmer, Texas,
awesome.
and New Beginnings Baptist Church. And it was really hard. It's still really hard because I love my students, I love my leaders, I love the church, I love the community, I love the football team and the coaches and the school and the principals. Everybody there has shaped me and made me a better person. And it was really hard to shift and say, listen, like, we need to move on. Because of that, we started seeking a place closer to home. And didn't ever think First Baptist Snellville will ever call me again, but they did in 2019 in January, and they said, we still haven't found anybody. Are you in a different place? And Trent called me back and asked that, and I was like, man, actually we are in a different place.
That's awesome.
There's been a shift in our thinking and where we need to be, and we'll enter into the process with y'all.
That's
and
dope.
Through that, man, we had a great interview process again. Came and visited, and in May of this year, I left my position at New Beginnings Baptist Church, Gilmer campus, as a student pastor, which was really difficult. Again, shout out to the students there. I love y'all. Miss you guys. And I made the descent down to Atlanta, 10 hours east, in my Silverado. And I got here and hit the ground running. Yeah. And got to meet Freddie, Mary, and the team. And y'all have been awesome.
Yeah,
y'all have been
that's
great.
dope. That's dope. So to end it off, what I like to do is I like to give the person a chance to talk about their scripture and just a little bit of motivation that you can leave to anybody who watches this, who sees, because you've had a lot of ups and downs in life, but you're at a happy place at this point in your life. And I think a lot of times we see people on staff at churches and sometimes that's the thing I love about you guys. That's the thing I love about First Baptist. It's a lot of people are just open. And so what's one scripture you can give to people watching, and what's one scripture you live by? So two, one you can give people watching to motivate them, and then one that you live by.
One to motivate y'all is Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. That scripture has been a life verse for me in the sense of even before I was a Christian, my dad always used to tell us that verse, to remember it, to keep it in our heart, and to live by it. And the reason why I say that is there's going to be many things in life that's going to be challenging, but if you trust that God is in control, and that if you follow what he says, he will make your path straight. He'll tell you what you need to do. He'll show you where you need to go. It will be pivotal, even more to the Christian, because that is where our whole faith is based on. It's not trusting ourselves, but trusting God.
100%.
Completely. Trusting Jesus. Trusting Jesus with your whole life. And then for me personally, a verse that I hold on to that has helped me through my journey is Psalms 139:14. That I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Because I'm an introvert, because I am socially awkward, I just want to be real and let people know that. Because I struggle with those things, I struggle with who I am internally a lot, I have to remind myself that my worth and my value is not determined by me or anybody else, but is determined by God, because I'm made in his image and his likeness. And that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, meaning that every single human being, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, white, black, Jewish, whatever category you want to put yourself in, is fearfully and wonderfully made. God made you with a purpose, with a plan. He that you have dignity and value that you can't even fathom or even understand, but God has placed that on you. So whenever I feel down, whenever I feel like I didn't do a good job leading, I have to also remember that God says, I don't determine your worth by what you do or how well you do it. I determine your worth by the fact that I made you and that I love you and that I desire to have a relationship with you. And that is for every single person that's ever walked on the face of this planet. So I hold on to that personally, because I do have bad days and I do struggle with, am I doing a good job, or do people understand what I'm trying to accomplish, and do people want to follow my lead? And whenever I get down in the dumps, it's not about how well I do it, even though that is very important. It's the fact that God says that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that he has me in his hands and he loves me, and there's nothing I can do to ever be less than who he's made me to be, and that I have infinite worth and value before him, and everybody else does too. That's a human.
Well, Gideon, I appreciate this. Let everybody know where they can find you on your social.
Yes. On Instagram is Gideon Ajagbe, Gideon.Ajagbe. And then obviously Facebook, Gideon Ajagbe as well. And just follow me, send a friend request. I will accept your friend request. And looking forward to getting to know you. DM me, comment on anything I've done, ask questions. I'm an open book. Love to share my life with you.
Well, guys, I just want to thank you again for this. And remember, we want to try to take people's voices who deserve to be heard and scale them and let the whole world hear them. So if you found that this episode gave you value in some way, shape, or form, we'd really appreciate if you could share it on your social, if you could share it on Spotify in some way, shape, or form, if you can text your friends. We just want to, the goal of this podcast on the FR Hart 2 audio show is to make voices that deserve to be heard let them be heard by many people. So with that being said, hope you have a great day and God bless.